Coming up on Network Africa, protesters agree to resumption of oil exports as the Sudanese government reaches a deal with tribal demonstrators in the eastern region. People begin returning to Mozambique's conflict-hit northern region despite security concerns. Plus, it's World Tourism Day, a day to foster awareness among the international community of the importance of tourism to global economies. This year's theme is Tourism for Inclusive Growth. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. We begin today with stories and happenings that made headlines over the weekend.
Tensions between Sudan's military and civilian politicians reached a low point on Sunday in the wake of last week's attempted coup, with senior officials calling on the public to prepare for protests over the withdrawal of official security details. The deteriorating relations have put the fragile transition to democratic civilian rule in its most precarious position in the 2 years since the removal of former President Omar al-Bashir. The long uncertain military and civilian partners in Sudan's transition have traded barbs following the coup attempt by soldiers loyal to Bashir. In Tunisia, about 2,000 demonstrators gathered in Tunis on Sunday under a heavy police presence to protest against Tunisian President Kais Saied's seizure of governing powers in July, calling on him to step down. Saied last week brushed aside much of the 2014 constitution, giving himself power to rule by decree 2 months after he sacked the prime minister, suspended parliament and assumed executive authority. And two security matters were on Saturday. A suicide car bomb killed at least 8 people in the Somali capital near the president's palace. Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab said it was behind the attack, which targeted a convoy going into the palace. At the scene of the blast, police said casualty could be higher, since some of the dead and wounded had been taken away by their relatives. A government official said among those killed was Hibak Abuka, an advisor of Women and Human Rights Affairs in Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein's rebels office. And finally, Zimbabwe on Sunday received another batch of Sinopharm COVID-19 vaccine doses from China. Chinese ambassador to Zimbabwe handed over the consignment to Zimbabwean Vice President Constantino Chiwenga, who is also the country's Minister of Health and Childcare at Harare's Robert Gabriel Mugabe International Airport.
The continued support from the Chinese government towards Zimbabwe's fight against COVID-19 pandemic speaks to the strong ties that exist between our two governments. Of course, our excellent relations underpinned by the comprehensive strategic partnership level of cooperation.
Zimbabwe has so far received 4 batches of vaccine doses from China since February.
Sudan's Transitional Authority has reached an agreement with protesters who had blocked 2 crucial pipelines in the east and disrupted the flow of oil in and out of the country. The demonstrators from the Beja community have been protesting for weeks, blocking the pipeline transporting oil exports from landlocked South Sudan and another that handles crude imports into Sudan. They have been angry about being left out of a peace deal the government signed last year with a number of rebel groups as part of the long-term transition from military to civilian rule in the country. Christians in Mozambique have resumed an in-person worship on Sunday after COVID-19 measures were relaxed by the president. Worshippers said it was a relief to be able to attend church, especially as the country faces attacks in the northern region. The resumption of services is in strict compliance to COVID-19 prevention measures with reduced number of attendees and frequent cleaning. Some churches plan to hold open-air services, and the churches were closed in July during the peak of the third coronavirus wave. Thousands of internally displaced people are being returned to their homes in Mozambique's Cabo Delgado province. Now, this is coming 6 months after a major militant attack, but some security analysts and even the United Nations is concerned about this repatriation that they say is premature.
Charred vehicles litter the quiet streets of Mozambique's Palma 6 months after a major attack by Islamic State-linked militants. But now, people are starting to return, despite warnings it might not be safe. Al-Shabaab insurgents, who have no relation to the Somali group of the same name, attacked the city in Mozambique's northernmost Cabo Delgado province in March. Many people were killed and tens of thousands forced to flee their homes. Ongoing violence has displaced many more. At the Quitunda IDP camp, one man described how the militants attacked 4 times.
The first one was on March 24th. They came back on April 25th, and then in May on the 26th. The last time they attacked on June 12th. In all this time, they have caused this terrible damage.
Although parts of the region remain abandoned, soldiers from Mozambique's regional neighbors have forced the insurgents into a retreat. Ronald Rivanga, spokesman for the Rwandan Defense Forces, says civilians are being returned.
We've already repatriated about 25,000 internally displaced persons. A few days ago, we repatriated IDPs from Quitunda camp, which you visited yesterday, and the Patakua camp. And yeah, we are continuing to do the same in other camps.
Over the weekend, Rwanda's President Paul Kagame visited Mozambique, where 1,000 of his country's troops are helping local soldiers fight Islamist extremists. He says the Rwandan troops cannot stay in Mozambique's Cabo Delgado forever.
So much as we cannot be here forever, I think primarily the problem we are dealing with our friends of Mozambique cannot stay here forever too. So as we solve the problem which solidified this cooperation, we are definitely working together.
The United Nations Department of Safety and Security warns that security is still uncertain, and security analysts also cautioning that returning the population may be premature. They say smaller attacks have been on the rise after an initial lull.
Today is the World Tourism Day, and the theme for this year's celebration is Tourism for Inclusive Growth. This year's celebration is being hosted by Côte d'Ivoire, fully showcasing the potential of tourism to create jobs for all and bring communities together. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a massive social and economic impact. Both developed and developing economies have been hit, and marginalized groups and the most vulnerable have been hardest hit. The UN World Tourism Organization says the restart of tourism will help kickstart recovery and growth. Meanwhile, Channels Television and the United Nations World Tourism Organization are now partners in accelerating development in the tourism sector by promoting robust conversations as the sector recovers from the pandemic.
As the world celebrates the 2021 World Tourism Day with the theme Tourism for Inclusive Growth, it's an opportunity for two giants to collaborate, come together and fight or move the sector forward in Africa and the world. We see a coming together of Channels Media Group and the United Nations World Tourism Organization, represented by the chairman of Channels Media Group and the Secretary General of United Nations World Tourism Organization. They meet in Abidjan here in Côte d'Ivoire, the host for the 2021 World Tourism Day. It's now become known that every 5 years the event is hosted in an African country, and so for 2021 it's being hosted in Côte d'Ivoire. The relationship between Channels Television and the United Nations started in August 2015 when the media group first formalized its collaboration with the United Nations to promote its efforts and projects and enhance conversations around the Sustainable Development Goals. The relationship is formalized as they sign the dotted lines and agree, after discussing, of course, on terms that would guide the relationship between United Nations World Tourism Organization and Channels Media Group. And the essence of this is to foster development in the tourism sector.
And nice friendship, because again, African continent needs to be more known outside of and out of the continent, and we see a lot of potential to support African tourism, to develop African culture, and we are starting, and I'm sure that via channels we can communicate better with
This is like the icing on the cake for us, because I love tourism. I like to travel a lot. And then the fact that we have to reset the button for tourism around the world, in the sense that global tourism has taken a hit arising from the pandemic that happened last year. So you rest assured that you have a very good partner in us, Channels TV, and we'll do everything possible to make sure that your objectives are met, using us, as a channel to reach the world with your message. So,
thank you. I will add one more.
It's a new dawn as this relationship is set to broaden discussions when it comes to tourism sector and enhance the developmental efforts in the sector, not just in Africa, but in the world. And it will always be memorable because it's the 2021 World Tourism Day celebration. So reporting here from Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire, I'm Ini John Mekwa for Channels Television News.
Well, Ini John Mekwa also tells us more about the World Tourism Day celebration that, is today.
125 participating countries, over 1,500 individuals present here, physically thousands more joining virtually. This is how the celebration of World Tourism Day for 2021 looks like, hosted by Côte d'Ivoire with the theme Tourism for Inclusive Growth. And conversations here goes for how to spread the benefit in tourism, from the tourism sector, from the big airlines to the small businesses. As we know, tourism has a very long value chain. So we see individuals here showing off their goods and their services through exhibition. What is on the mind of a lot of people as they meet here is to finding innovative ways to sustain the growth in the tourism sector and to make it spread to other parts of the economy, not just here in Côte d'Ivoire, which is hosting this year's event, but of course around the world, outside Africa and everywhere. That's the story here from Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire as we celebrate the World Tourism Day for 2021. I'm Ini John Mekwa reporting for Channels Television News.
Still ahead on the program. Ethiopia celebrates its annual Meskel festival. We'll give you more details after the break. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. It's World Tourism Day, and let's hear now from a blind massage therapist and a safari lodge manager in Kenya who are counting on the sector's quick recovery after the country's tourism industry recorded a $1 billion loss in revenue last year, due to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic.
The Ngulia Safari Lodge was built in Kenya's Savo area in 1968. It was the first of its kind to open in the Tsavo West National Park, which is famous for the two man-eating lions that preyed on railroad workers in the late 1800s. But the region's rich history and popularity as a safari destination has not spared businesses based here at the Ngulia Lodge from suffering in recent years. Tourism accounted for 8.2% of Kenya's GDP in 2019, according to the World Health and Tourism Council, much of it from visits to nature parks, but has fallen drastically during the pandemic. Kenya's tourism sector lost close to $1 billion in revenue between January and October in 2020, when, according to a tourism ministry report, numbers of foreign visitors fell by 2/3. Marion Minayo is a blind massage therapist who's been employed at Ngulia for 7 years. She says she used to book about 10 clients per day.
Last year we didn't have business, so we didn't have massages. I only did maybe 1 or 2 a day, but now it has picked up. I can do up to 6 massages per day.
The industry is estimated to employ over 2 million people.
The revenue that we were actually drawing from international clients always declined almost by 80%. This forced us that to put our staff members on a rotational schedule, whereby some of them were not fully on duty. And because some of them were not fully on duty, this actually affected them.
From safaris in the Masai Mara and other world-beating wildlife reserves to holidays on pristine Indian Ocean beaches, Kenya's tourism industry contributes 10% of economic output. Kenya, which welcomed 2 million visitors in 2019, only got 300,000 in the first half of this year, the tourism ministry has declared.
I wish after this corona gets to be coming a lot, the way they were coming before corona. We were very busy and we were happy.
Her manager thinks the country's strategy of marketing the country's holiday spots to its own citizens must continue in order to buffer the sector from similar disruption in the future.
We can be able to promote both international and domestic tourism so that we can also diversify from over-reliance of international market by bringing in all the people in the country so that they can visit the lodge, and with that we can be able to draw a lot of revenue.
Kenya's tourism minister Najib Balala said in July that equal access to vaccines is key to rebuilding Africa's devastated tourism industries. About 21 million jobs have been lost in the sector across the continent since the start of the pandemic.
Deputy Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Demeke Mekonnen, is highlighting his government's commitment for the provision of humanitarian assistance to those in need, especially as the country battles with the Tigray crisis. Deputy Prime Minister Mekonnen made this known at the UN General Assembly debate that's ending today, 27th September. He also added that Ethiopia is ready to facilitate the operation of its humanitarian partners that adhere to the principles of neutrality, independence, and humanity and the laws of the country. With concern mounting about the food situation in Ethiopia's Tigray region, the UN says hundreds of aid trucks, which made the journey up to Tigray from other parts of Ethiopia between mid-July and mid-September, have not returned, and so they are unable to transport further crucial supplies.
Despite the undue pressure, we shall live up to the solemn obligation to preserve sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the political independence of Ethiopia. While cooperation and concern from our friends is welcome, we underline the need to employ constructive approach, cultivate trust, and create understanding. Attempts to extend support or even opine on an internal issue of a state requires full understanding about the complexity of the problem. I also underscore my government's unreserved commitment for the provision of humanitarian assistance and facilitate the operation of our humanitarian partners that adhere to the principle of neutrality, independence, and humanity, and the laws of the country. Apart from this, no excuse will justify any attempt to intervene in our internal affairs.
Ethiopia for his statement.
Also addressing the General Assembly debate is the Vice President of South Sudan, Rebecca Inyandeng de Mabor, who says it's a painful situation for the country that is blessed with fertile land to be regarded as poor. According to her, the development of the revitalized National Development Strategy is the government of South Sudan's clear and deliberate roadmap that will lay the foundation of sustainable peace and stabilization of the economy.
The development of the revitalized National Development Strategy is the government of South Sudan's clear and deliberate roadmap to accelerating the implementation of our axis while laying the foundations of sustainable peace and the stabilization of our economy. It is a painful and shameful situation for a country endowed with vast fertile land to be regarded as poor. We must ensure peace and security in the country and double our efforts to support our people who wanted to return and are returning to their areas of origin, for them to participate fully in nation building and contribute to bringing food security in the country.
Rwandan activists have called on France not to allow the burial on its soil of a key orchestrator of the 1994 genocide. They said they did not want the grave of Theoneste Bagosora to become a pilgrimage site for those who supported the killings of 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus. The activist group in a statement said France is already a shelter for many suspects of the genocide and should not become a pilgrimage site for people nostalgic of the genocidal regime. Several members of Mr. Bagosora's family live in France. The 80-year-old died in Mali on Saturday, where he was serving a 25-year jail sentence for war crimes. He was a senior figure in Rwanda's Ministry of Defense at the time of the killings. Now, it is not yet known where he will be buried. Well, if you're a lover of football, this would interest you. A South Sudanese soccer fanatic has launched an academy for like-minded young African refugees in Cairo, Egypt. South Sudanese soccer player and founder of South Sudan Soccer Academy, Francis Deng Noel, says he has created this to give them a new lease on life.
A 32-year-old South Sudanese professional soccer player imagines life as very harsh without soccer. His love for the game compelled him to establish the South Sudan Soccer Academy for young African refugees in Cairo, once he moved to the busy Egyptian capital to complete a media and translation degree at the American University.
The academy faces many challenges, including the rent paid for the football field, as well as money to pay for uniforms and balls. Sometimes the families of the young trainees support us and some of them don't. We face many problems. I hope that those interested in soccer, like the South Sudan Soccer Union or the Egyptian Soccer Union, can help these young people develop, because soccer is an avenue for friendship and peace.
Aiming to instill a passion for soccer amongst children who live in difficult conditions, Kowal also helps them integrate into society and avoid negative behavior like street violence and homelessness.
The academy aims to help families raise their children, teaching young people soccer skills to protect them from negative behavior in the streets like homelessness, leaving their homes, etc. We teach them in the academy to respect the old and the young, to respect fathers and the elderly in the streets. We also support women in soccer and women's rights, because women have the right to play soccer.
Established in 2019, the academy currently trains 180 African refugee children aged 5 and above and supports aspiring soccer talent amongst young women, with 30 girls joining the young squad. Amongst them is 23-year-old Tuta Alpha Kiali, who thinks the academy plays a major role in developing young talent and helping refugees achieve their dreams.
An academy like this one benefits children very much, especially those who don't have a family or relatives here. It helps them develop their talents and achieve their dreams, not only in their country, but in another country where they have opportunities to play soccer in a place that is not their own. The academy renews your hope in life.
The academy is supported by community contributions, mostly by the families of the trainee children, yet Kowal says he still faces financial challenges.
Ethiopians are celebrating the annual Meskel festival, the first big festival of the Ethiopian religious year. According to Ethiopian Orthodox Christian tradition, the national holiday marks the discovery of the cross that Jesus Christ was crucified on. Thousands celebrated the eve of the festival, known as the Mirror, by gathering in Meskel Square in the heart of the capital city, Addis Ababa. The Mirror, which falls on the 26th of September, is a colorful occasion attracting scores of believers dressed in robes. Meskel Festival falls on the day after. And that's it on the program for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.